collaborate and do this together today. So I think we'd like to start by just, we could go around the table and each of you take 10 seconds and just maybe say your name and what part of Charlotte you live in, and that'd be great.
Hi, I'm Bethany, and I live in Windsor Park.
I'm Montressa, and I live in Valentine.
I am Justin, and I live in Wesley Heights.
I'm Glenda, I live in South Charlotte.
I'm Nemish. I come from Asian community and I live in East Charlotte.
I'm Casey, and I actually don't know the area that I live in, but it's on the corner of Weddington and McKee.
I'm Julie, and I live in, I'm like her, I don't know the area I live in. It's past North Lake Hall.
Hey, I'm John, I live in Sagefield.
Awesome. So Erin is going to get us started with the conversation.
And I am Erin, and I actually live in Belmont, North Carolina, a little south of Charlotte. And I'm a native Charlottean. And this is my first time hosting, so thank you for coming to our table. And so I'm just going to read from our host kit that we have here. And you all don't have to read it. We're just going to kind of be in the space together. So we're going to start out by just being in the moment. And I'm going to ask if everyone can take a moment and reflect on the relationships that you may have in your home, in your work, and examine the connectivity across difference. At your grocery store, in your place of worship, experience, your leisure activities, and your social groups. So take about 30 seconds and then silently take a personal inventory of your daily interactions that you may have. Again, those are your connectivity across difference. Take about 30 seconds. Thank you. So now I'm going to take out this really awesome map, all right? So you all have a map in front of you, you can look at it. I'll also put one in the middle of the table that we have. So in a moment, I'm going to ask you a question. And I'm going to ask you about where your story fits in on our map. And you're going to have about 2 minutes as we go around our table to tell us about where your story fits in on this map. The question is, when were you deeply aware of having a segregated experience in Charlotte or Mecklenburg County? We want you to be concise and specific. Again, when were you deeply aware of having a segregated experience in Charlotte or Mecklenburg County? Be concise and specific about who was or who was not included. Take another 30 seconds and think about that timeline that you've got in front of you. And then we'll go around. Who would like to start? Justin?
So when I asked that question, I was like, man, what? I don't really think I have like a segregated experience just because just how I kind of grew up and how my life is. But the moment that you first, was that first moment, I actually had a conversation this morning where when I first came to show, I actually went to a private Christian school, and I noted that there was only 4 black kids in my class. So that was like the very first moment where I noticed that like, oh, no one else is like me. No one really, had the same experiences as me. So that was really the first moment when I first noticed that I had a segregated room in Charlotte. Was I cognizant of it when I was back then, when I was a child? No, I wasn't. But now looking back onto it, that was definitely an experience that I had experienced.
Thank you, Justin. timeline was that for you?
2005.
About 2005. Okay. Would anyone else like to share? Yeah.
So for me, I moved to Charlotte in 2009 and in August, and I think I recognized my first acknowledgement that I was in a significantly segregated experience here the first day that I took my children to their public school, because it was absent of color, which is not the experience that I had growing up. And that felt strange to me, and also wasn't really sure what to do about it. That's connected to my faith community, because partially one of my children now attends the Jewish preschool, and my other two children are in a wonderful elementary school, but it is not diverse, and I think that was very intentional. And now we live in that space and continue to choose that, and what that means kind of from a positive experiential perspective for my kids, and also we are very aware of what they are missing and where we need to fill in, because it's not reality either that they're always surrounded by other Jewish individuals, or that they're not surrounded by people who don't look like them. And so for me, that was 2009 was on the timeline, but it's still through today.
Thank you, Glenda. Anyone else?
So I started teaching at Geringer in 2014. And teaching at Geringer, although extremely diverse, is absent of many white people. But when looking at this timeline, the thing that really sticks out was 2016. And when I see that day, I remember the conversation in my class. We took the entire class to talk about it with my leadership students. And it was something that after we talked, they were so grateful to just have space to have the conversation. And I realized that they didn't really have space to have that conversation before, so that is what sticks out to me on the timeline.
Yes.
1965, I was 8 years old, and my little brother was up sick that night, and so that's why I was awake. And we heard the bombings because Julius Chambers lived a block from our house, and we saw the flames. And my father went up the street afterwards to see what was going on. He came back and told us what had happened. And Kelly Alexander didn't live far from us, and we heard his house bombed after Julius Chambers did. And so we heard both of those that night, and we went around the next day to see all of the homes that had bombed. And that was happening during a time when the Klan rode through our neighborhood regularly. And as a child, we would hide behind the bushes and watch them ride down the streets in their hoods, and see the rallies over on Statesville Avenue and Statesville Road in the evening, and ride by and watch them burn crosses in our neighborhoods. Yeah, that was 1965. I was there.
Thank you, Professor. Yes, Nimish.
In 2002, at my birthday, and my father, mother, everybody came from India. We were here. Normally, we celebrate birthdays by going to hospitals and sharing some lot of prayers and things. He used to do that in Uganda with me when I was a child. And he said, let's go to homeless shelter. That day, when I saw brothers and sisters in that area, I couldn't find any Asian there. That was shocking. And till today, I go there every year, many times. Today also we were there with our seniors, and we are still not seeing that. It's not that that community doesn't have that trouble, but we don't see them coming out. Thank you.
Thank you, Nimish.
Hey, I'm John. I don't know that I have a specific timeline, but what I think about is you talked about the exercise. You know, I'll have a lot of diverse interactions each day, depending on where I'm at or what I'm doing. My children go to Collingswood Language Academy, and it's a wonderful place because you have everybody from everywhere at that place, and a lot of socioeconomic differences too. But everybody, it's great. Like on a community work day, everybody just gets along, even if we don't speak the same language. You know, we're all shoveling mulch and doing our thing and all that, which is a lot of fun. I think the thing that stuck out to me the most was, while I have a lot of diverse interaction on a daily basis, is it comes to my social interaction, like that's the place where I need to be more intentional about being more diverse. And so I hope that, you know, through programs like this, I can make more of an effort, you know, to be around other people of just a variety. So that's what I'm hoping to do. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
I believe, Mike, I'm sorry. Leave mine. I believe in 2016, when my grandson moved to Charlotte, and we were looking for a school for exceptionally gifted children, and we learned that all of the, I guess, good rated schools were in socioeconomic areas that were not what my daughter could afford. And so we had to go to CMS, and CMS offers a lottery that the children have to wait on and be selected for to get into school. And when they picked him for this lottery and he got in the program that we wanted him for, he was one of two African American children. And that was 2016. And I learned that he was different, but I learned that the school systems here in Charlotte require some work.
Thank you, Gina.
So I grew up and was raised a northerner. So coming down south was, I'd say, more than a bit of a culture shock. I've spent the past few years living in Brooklyn, in my own little segregated bubble of Park Slope, which, yes, has a lot of diversity, but is segregated in its own many ways. Moving down here was very interesting because while I appear to just be white, I am also Jewish, and for me, growing up in New York, everybody was Jewish. And even if you weren't Jewish, you were Jewish by association. And that was growing up in Westchester. So coming down here, even though I now even work, and my husband works in this wonderful community of Shalom Park, it is still somewhat of a shock that, yes, most of the people who are in this vicinity are Jewish. When you leave this place, it's very different, and it's confusing for me because it's completely out of my comfort zone, and I still assume that everybody's Jewish, even though I moved down south, which is proven to be kind of funny. But beyond that, when we were moving, I had a 3-month-old at the time, and we didn't really know too much about Charlotte. When we came and visited, it was wonderful to see all the different communities, but we still couldn't get a grasp of it. It was a bit confusing as far as where everybody lived and where to settle down. So we said, okay, we're not gonna buy a place yet. We don't know the city well enough. So we decided, even though we had gone and seen all these places, that we were, I think I had found a place on some rental site, to rent a townhouse for a couple of years to really get a feel for what the community looks like. We happened to move to a place that is pretty diverse as far as Charlotte is concerned. We have a lot of neighbors of color and different socioeconomic backgrounds, and people a block away may own their own house, but other people are renting, and there are lots of kids and older people and younger people, and it's just everything is very diverse in our little community. And that's very different than when I bring my son to school here. And so those were the two places where we were going the most, was very South Charlotte on the border of Weddington. We live in a community called Willowmere, and that is McKee Elementary. And I had even heard from a lot of people, oh, McKee Elementary is not good, but then I heard from a ton of people, McKee Elementary is great. It really depended on the type of person that you asked, which is strange to me, coming from a place where the schools are, if you live in these areas, this is where you go to school, and it doesn't change all the time depending on what you want to do. And I'm a big fan, proponent of public schools. I really want to send my kids to public schools and fight to send my kids to public schools. If the school that they are zoned for isn't good, then I will get involved and make it better. That is not like all of my peers. But besides that, there was a time when one of my son's teachers, who's African American, needed a ride home. And I really don't know the area very well. And so I said, okay, well, you're just sitting at this bus stop. And I know the buses really don't come a lot. It's not like where I just came from, where they always come on time. I said, I'll take you home. And it took a very long time, and it was an interesting tour through Charlotte, going uptown and then into some parts of Charlotte that I'd never seen before, behind some railroad tracks where there were very small houses. And I said, whoa, this is a part of Charlotte I'd never seen before. And I probably, had I not brought her home, I probably would have never seen it. And it surprised me. And I think the next day was the day I started learning more about this Opportunity Task Force and what had happened started being last on this list. And that is when I started saying, I need to get involved, and maybe that was some sort of calling for me to be more of a part of the Charlotte community and make it better, because I know that we all want it to be better. Thank you, Casey.
So it sounds like a couple of you have been here, you're Charlotteans. How many of you have been, Justin, you here for most of your life? Yeah, so have some of these stories of, maybe, let's see exactly, some of the stories shared today, have they helped you reflect on your experience of the legacy of segregation in Charlotte?
Yeah, so I've been here for 15, a little bit over 15, 10 years, a little over 10 years. So give you some context, I'm 27, and the other half of my life was spent in DC, Germany, Paris, Belgium. So I have a pretty diverse set of lens compared to a lot of my friends and a lot of people. I'll just mention someone, she volunteers with hard math tutor, and I say like my school background is a lot different. So I went to like an American school, then I went to a private school, then I went to public school, then I went to a private university, then a public university. So, you know, for me when I come into Charlotte, it was very like shocking for me, where I'm so used to being in spaces where there's so much diversity of language, culture, you know, people, thought. Then I come here and everyone is kind of, you know, a lot different than what I grew up in. And I had to kind of learn how to speak a whole new language, for lack of a better, you know, term. So like a majority of my friends, so, you know, I think John mentioned you had a lot of diverse interactions. So a lot of my friends don't look like me. They don't usually think, I don't know how that worked out. That way it's like I think a little bit more differently than we look differently, we have different interests. Most of the time you guys really connect. Sometimes we have different faiths. So, you know, when I look at, you know, segregation, for me, it's like that's not have always been my experience. But there's been a lot of one-offs that I've noticed when I look at the legacy of segregation, and I look at Charlotte, and I learn more about this history. As I learn more about what it represented, like what was segregation like in the city and the policies that are behind it. So for me, it's just really it's very eye-opening. I really want to know how can I play a part in the role to make it better. How can I help?
I think what you just said, Justin, is a really great segue into us closing out our table, right? How can we help? How can we take a specific action to impact change in this legacy of segregation, right? So that's our takeaway for this table. This is a model table today, but in our actual tables, we want to leave our group by taking a specific action and talking about how can we address the legacy of segregation. How can we approach our solution? How can we take some actionable steps together? And how can we do that as individuals, and how can we do that as a group? So thank you all for being at our table today. Thank you all for being willing to share your stories. I felt it. I don't know about you. I think we all felt it here. Thank you so much for being in the space and being who you are. And we truly appreciate it. Please give them a round of applause.